I'm joined now by John Pitts. This is the weekly feature we call Talking with Boss, and we're trying something a little different here. And if you go to the blog at InsideOleMissSports.com, you can actually watch the video production of this weekly segment, and you can look behind us and you can get a glimpse of Daily Journal World headquarters. But we're
scary, but
that's where we are. Going to talk a lot of football. Going to talk some SEC football, Ole Miss, and a couple of national topics as well. John, wanted to start with the Ole Miss-Texas game. You know, I went into that game thinking that even with Case McCoy, that Texas would have some success throwing downfield and would play on a little bit of emotion. I thought that was going to be a more difficult game for Ole Miss than it turned out to be, particularly in the second half. Well, what were your impressions of the game?
My impressions are that Texas is a mess, right now, a big mess, and changing coordinators the week of the game didn't help. But in the post-mortem, you sort of get the sense that Ole Miss will be very fortunate to find another opponent this year that's as disorganized as Texas was, particularly on the defensive side. There's no question that Ole Miss under Hugh Freeze is a good second-half adjustments team, but Texas got some deep-seated problems. I think they have a more talented roster of kids than they showed, but they're just not putting their players in position to succeed, and that's a coaching thing. And
you know, the adjustments have been a big topic around Ole Miss this week. And when I hear that, I hear the second half adjustments. Obviously, that's coaching, and I think they're doing a really good job of that right now. But I go back, I remember what a big topic that was in a negative way for Hugh Freeze in his last year. I mean, they were getting really outscored by enormous figures there in the third quarter, and I can remember Houston trying to do different things to correct that, to the point of coming out of the locker room earlier in a game at Auburn and doing calisthenics on the field, you know, to try and loosen players up again. But anyway, good halftime adjustments for Ole Miss right now. A lot of talent still on that Texas roster. A lot of those same players that contributed in a really big Texas win in Oxford last year, but like you said, a lot of intangible problems going on right now. John, if those intangible problems lead to a coaching change at Texas, who sits in the big chair?
Wow, there's a lot of Ole Miss fans afraid it'll be Hugh Freeze. You know, a lot of Twitter traffic on game night of, you know, hurry up and get them out of town before somebody with a big checkbook comes and writes Hugh Freeze a big check. I don't know. I mean, they will need to make a splashy hire of some sort. I mean, it could be they'll cast around among the NFL guys for somebody they can certainly afford to pay, like an NFL team. I know there's a certain paranoid faction that thinks that they'll try to reach out to Nick Saban. You know, and given the Nick Saban adventures between LSU and Miami and then Alabama, you don't want to say, oh, well, that's something that could never happen. But they have a tremendous financial ability to leverage their strengths, their own TV network, and it's Texas, and, you know, they've got some money down there.
But didn't Nick Saban say that they could only carry him out of Tuscaloosa in a pine box?
No, I think that was Tommy Tuberville.
That was
talking about Oxford.
Can Alabama match Texas for dollars? Is there that big a gap in those two?
Well, I mean, it'd be nice to be Nick Saban's agent, I suppose, if that's where it came to. I don't know. I mean, they're going to have to aim real carefully here, because this is sort of a once-in-a-generation coaching change, and you don't want to go all Lane Kiffin on that. You don't want to make a mistake that creates a tidal wave, a shock wave of further mistakes that you have to make down the line, and the next thing you know, even though you have a national championship trophy, you're Tennessee.
I have seen some media coverage today on Wednesday that really, while he hasn't been a really flashy. I mean, he won 10 games last year. Will Muschamp at Florida, not with a dynamic offense, not in the Florida kind of way, but I've seen a lot of coverage that suggests that Will Muschamp has a great shot at that job if it opens, as long as DeLoss Dodds remains as AD.
Do you think some of that is wishful thinking in Florida, that they would like for him to go to Texas so they can take another swing at that job?
Yeah, maybe so. Maybe so. John, it does stand to be a pretty interesting off-season of coaching carousel news if things continue to trend the way they are at a couple of big schools. I mean, potentially you could be talking about change at Nebraska, Southern Cal, as well as Texas. I mean, I don't remember an off-season like that recently.
Well, those are three big brand names. I mean, we're not talking about openings at Cincinnati and whatnot. You know, we're talking about three teams that are sort of on the list of the perennial programs. And in each case, they want to be very careful to get it right this time if they can. Southern Cal has done the worst possible thing, it seems to me. They have let UCLA back in the game in Los Angeles.
Yeah, they sure have. Boy, they dominated that conversation in the number 2 market, for a long time. And all of a sudden, UCLA is, I assume has passed them. Not only just relevant, but at least on the field, looks like they might have passed them.
Bo Pelini at Nebraska has had a moment like Andy Griffith in A Face in the Crowd. He has revealed unto his adoring public what he actually thinks of his adoring public, then says, "Oh, but they will forgive me." I don't know about that. Ask Anthony Weiner how easily it is to get forgiven about stuff.
Is the 2-year-old tape a firing offense?
Well,
a lot of F-bombs in there.
You're not going to get a bonus out of that. You're not going to get
Yeah.
a bonus out of that. I mean, it rivals Goodfellas, I think, for bleepable moments there. Again, if Pelini was coming off a national championship, if Pelini was coming off a high note, that would be one thing. But you combine the toxic mix of messing with the fan base and losing ball games.
Yeah, I saw a comment from him that, and I'm paraphrasing now, where he indicated he felt like he had built up enough goodwill. I think his word was points. I think points, but I don't know. I mean, I haven't. I don't recall them being in a BCS conversation.
No,
so
that's probably not going to end well.
All right, so Ole Miss open date this week. They've done spent the first half of the week scouting themselves, looking at themselves. He's got GAs that bring him tape. We're talking about Hugh Freeze now. GAs that bring him tape of the Rebels, and he looks at their tendencies and things of that nature. I thought it was interesting for Hugh to say that, hey, we're looking at other tempo teams. We want to see if we can be faster. We want to see what we can implement in this tempo offense to make this unit go faster. If you're Hugh Freeze, John, what other tempo teams are you looking at? Who do you think is doing it really well right now that you might be able to borrow from?
Well, if you're looking at anybody besides Oregon, I don't know who it would be. I mean, they're sort of the ones that have put it together best, I think, in terms of what they do, and seemingly almost being interchangeable. It's just, okay, one guy leaves, a guy gets hurt, they just plug another guy in and keep running it. So that would be the team that I would be looking at probably.
Yeah, and a lot of uniforms at Oregon too. A lot of you talk about dollars, they got some Nike.
Maybe study it in black and white to avoid the distractions of the color uniform.
Well, let's look at some of the teams who are playing this week and talk about some of these SEC games. Ole Miss at Alabama next week. Thank goodness. Hey man, I'm excited. A 5:30 start on ESPN. I'm so accustomed to the 8:30 in Tuscaloosa and driving back, getting back about 4 in the morning. It's a unique experience to cover a game, write a story for your newspaper, and then drive home and be able to pick up the product in the driveway as you pull in and walk in.
You hope so. You hope it would be there.
Anyway, games that are being played this week. LSU and Auburn used to have a lot of luster for this game, and now Auburn has fallen off a little bit. What do you think we have learned about Auburn in 3 weeks? Do you think that they go to Baton Rouge and are competitive here?
Probably not. I mean, I think LSU's going to try to run the ball hard at them. If I had to guess, that game might play differently if it was at Auburn. But I would tend to think that LSU is right where they want to be going into a game like that.
Yeah, even when Auburn was down last year, they played LSU really close. I want to say it was like a 12-10 game or something like that. But I look at Auburn now, and they scored 31 against Washington State, but didn't really do it in what you think is a really big tempo offense sort of way. They had a special teams touchdown there. They had they just kind of worked their way up like that. It wasn't very flashy there. And Washington State had chances to win. Threw 3 interceptions in that game, and then followed that up with the win against Southern Cal. So, I think the jury's still out on Auburn. Jury's still out on a lot of teams, but
yes.
Mississippi State didn't run the ball extremely well against Auburn.
I wonder if Auburn has deliberately held back some of their playbook going into this game. You'd certainly think maybe he'd try to bring a few new twists to the thing if he could.
Tennessee at Florida. We saw Tennessee go to Oregon, where they were obviously outmanned, and they obviously were the underdog in that game. But for an SEC team to go out there and Oregon could have scored 70.
Oh, yeah.
They could have scored 70. Does Oregon get points for that, for beating up on Tennessee like that? If you're a poll voter right now, does that impress you a little more?
Well, this is part of the argument that the SEC's down this year, is that Tennessee goes to Oregon and gets beat like that. Of course, everybody goes to Oregon and gets beat like that. So, I mean, he's just got a talent gap.
Mm-hmm.
Tennessee just has a talent gap now. They'll have to recruit into what they're trying to do, and it'll be a couple of years.
Well, we've seen Tennessee win big against Austin Peay, all right, which is kind of like Mississippi State winning big against Alcorn. Really not.
It's worse actually, because Austin Peay at one point was a club football team within my recent memory. I mean, they didn't. I mean, they're just. It was embarrassing that Tennessee and Vanderbilt played them this year.
Club football. Like intramurals, is that what it was?
Well,
who do you play when you're club
football? It was
football?
non-scholarship. I don't know what you
Okay.
Terrible.
All right, so a big win over Austin Peay. They come back and they beat Western Kentucky, who has been a good Sun Belt team, and you throw in the Bobby Petrino factor, and they had just really handled Kentucky. I thought it wouldn't be shocking to see Western go to Knoxville and get another one, but they had some turnover problems in that game. So
Western not that good.
Yeah, well, I'll tell you what. I'm trying to build a case here and just get an idea if Tennessee will compete better against Florida, which has struggled on offense, hasn't been good on offense, had the turnovers against Miami that led to a loss in that game. Do you see Tennessee going to Gainesville and having a chance here to take Will Muschamp out of the Texas coach discussion?
Florida will do more to hold itself back offensively than Tennessee will.
What have we learned, John, in 3 games about Arkansas? I mean, again, I look and I see here a team that has put up some good defensive numbers. I see a team that's running the ball again. We know they're not going to snap it fast. We know that because it might hurt somebody. Okay, but they were trailing Samford in the third quarter. They were, I thought it took them longer to take control of the game against Southern Miss than it should have.
Right.
And I go back. I was impressed with Arkansas most in the season opener against Louisiana Lafayette, because we've seen Mark Hudspeth win games and play well, and they had a lot of starters coming back. And I don't know what the Cajuns have done since then. And remember, it's Louisiana Lafayette. It's not Louisiana. No matter what the propaganda says coming out of Lafayette, there is a hyphen there. Remember the hyphen. But that's a team that has been a very explosive offensive team. Had a lot of starters coming back, and Arkansas really dominated that game on the opening weekend. What what do you think about the body of work for Brett Bielema so far?
I think he's getting a lot out of what he has, and I don't think he has that much. I mean, I'm not impressed with the overall quality of talent there, but they're probably getting as much out of their roster as anybody right now, with the possible exception of Ole Miss.
Well, even or right after the Louisiana Lafayette game, I heard or I saw one of the Arkansas writers tweet on Twitter, which is where you go to tweet things, that hey, this the schedule sets up for these guys to be 4-0, and yes, it did with Samford and Southern Miss, and and now they go to Rutgers, which I presume I don't know what Rutgers is doing right now. I presume that it will be a bigger challenge, particularly on the road, than what Arkansas has faced so far. But they could be 4-0, and sometimes you get 4-0 and you get a little confidence and you start playing well. And I think Brett Bielema is a successful coach and has put together a good staff. That's going to be an interesting team to keep an eye on. Troy at Mississippi State, John. Troy's going to get yards and points. What happens here? Is State in danger of losing this game at home?
Yes. They need to be really, really careful. They need to come out and play smart. Mullen needs to coach smart, and I'm not entirely sure that he did. Matt Wyatt makes the point that in the fourth quarter they made so many mistakes that even if Mullen had called a perfect fourth quarter, they might have gotten beat anyway. But they've got to clean up the mistakes. I believe Matt said on 17 snaps in the fourth quarter there were 10 mistakes. And you just can't do that. You can't do that under any circumstances against anybody in a game that's up for grabs.
Well, as a former quarterback, he has a good eye for that sort of thing. And I know that Troy is a dangerous opponent. I watched part of the Arkansas State and Troy game a few weeks back, and that's been their only loss so far. So Arkansas State is still competitive. Ole Miss fans will want to keep an eye on this game as well. Troy appears on the schedule later this year in November. It will be a big offensive challenge, I presume. And I've seen Troy win there, John. I covered the tornado game there in 2001.
And Troy has a bunch of Mississippi kids on the roster, including a bunch of JUCOs, and that's always, kids get their jaws set a certain way when they come home to play.
They do. They play with some of that emotion that I thought I would see from Texas last week, but really did not. They do like to come home and play the Ole Misses and the Mississippi State. So off topic a little bit, John, Southern Miss. I continue to be amazed. I don't think Ellis Johnson was a good hire for them, but when you go from a conference championship to a winless season, that's not all on the new coach.
No.
Where do you think Southern is in their rebuilding of the program now? I thought the Todd Monken hire was good and was in line with the success that they had. When they were winning because of offense and innovation and things like that. It wasn't because Larry Fedora was a defensive-minded coach. And so that kind of made the Ellis Johnson hire peculiar, at least on that front. So they've gone back. They've had success with Oklahoma State assistants before. And anyway, it seems to me that just turnovers and still trying to get over the hump. And I just think, man, that it was a fast fall for them, and I wonder how long it's going to take them to regain some respectability.
I think it'll be another year. I don't know that I fault the quarterback. I'm not sure who he's throwing the ball to. In other words, who's down there to. Sometimes a skilled receiver group can help bail things out for a quarterback by going and getting the ball. And they're just turning the ball over so much, and then you push to try not to do that. And I think it's going to be a long haul for them. And people who this year said, they'll turn it around quick, I don't think so.
Well, I'll tell you what, when you go from conference championship to winless, that sounds like a lapse in recruiting, as well as maybe a bad coaching hire, but a little bit more than that. What was the recruiting like with the former staff? Were they getting players in the program? It doesn't look like they have a lot of players there right now, or at least Todd Monken hasn't been able to put the pieces in the right place and build confidence yet.
And I wonder about a thing that seems to be imponderable based on the way the school is covered. I sort of wonder what's going on in the locker room there.
Yeah.
I wonder if they didn't lose the locker room some way or other, and that can be a long haul to get back.
John, good stuff, man. We'll catch up with you next week.
And we'll look forward to it.